According to the internet, what's happening in Minneapolis right now is very simple. It's Trump's fault, or it's Kristi Noem's fault, or it's ICE's fault, or it's Greg Bovino's fault, or Tom Homan's fault. So pick your villain, slap a headline on it, and move on. And we obviously know what people are reacting to right now, which is ICE being out on the streets. But what is not obvious and what is not mysterious is why Minnesota is all of a sudden the epicenter of all of this activity and pushback. Because before the protests and before ICE was on the streets, there was a massive fraud scandal that was exposed in Minnesota that went viral, thank you to independent journalist Nick Shirley. And essentially, if you haven't seen it already, which hopefully everyone has, but if you haven't, billions of tax dollars have been stolen in the state of Minnesota by mostly Somali refugees, and they were put towards government-funded businesses such as daycare, non-emergency medical transportation. And when Nick Shirley went on the grounds to investigate this, he would knock on the doors of the business and there was no kids there. So that was exposed, and all eyes were on Minnesota for a while there. Now, that fraud didn't magically cause everything that's followed today, but it's absolutely flipped a switch, because once the spotlight was on, everything escalated fast, political narratives hardened, media framing and shifting went nuclear, enforcement decisions became national news, and public reaction went from debate to chaos. And that's why history matters. When a community suddenly becomes the epicenter of a national argument, you can't understand what's happening today if you don't understand who they are, why they're here, what they've contributed, and what challenges actually exist beyond slogans and talking points. So before we argue about ICE or Trump or federal enforcement, and trust me, we'll get there, we're going to do the part that almost nobody's talking about. We're going to slow it down, we're going to rewind, and we're going to start with context. Who are the Somali Americans? Why did they come to the United States? When did they come to the United States? Why did Minnesota become such a hub for Somalis? What role has policy played, both good and bad, in shaping the outcomes we are seeing today? Because if we skip that step, then we're not trying to understand what's happening, we're just reacting to the loudest moment. Before we jump in, quick housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble, make sure that you're subscribed, and if you're not, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a future episode. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you like what we're doing here, please give us a rating or drop us a comment, because we do actually read them all. And if you want to contact us or keep up with us outside of our weekly episodes, you can follow us on socials. We are on TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, and Rumble now. These are all going to be linked in the episode description. You can also reach out to us via email with any topic requests, questions, and debates if you'd like, to our email, which will also be listed in the episode description. All right, let's rewind. So before Somali, Minnesota community became a headline because of the discovered fraud by Nick Shirley, there was already a Somali population here, very heavy, for quite some time. So Dad, start us at the beginning. When did the Somalis first start coming to the U.S., and why did they come here? How has their population grown over time, and why is Minnesota the biggest hub for their community?
Believe it or not, Somali Americans are here mostly as a effect of the Cold War, believe it or not, between the Soviet Union and the United States.
When did that occur?
The Cold War went on from the 50s, after World War II, all the way till the Soviet Union collapsed in 89 or 90. But anyways, the nation of Somalia is, if you're not geographically aware, is located at the Horn of Africa. So that was a very important geographical position between the Indian Ocean, the sea, and all that. So they were basically a client state to the Soviet Union, communist client state. Okay, but next to Somalia is the nation of Ethiopia. Okay, so that was also a Soviet friend at the time. Well, Somalia and Ethiopia, they had a bit of a disagreement on land between the two nations, and they went to war. At that point in the 80s, Soviet Union decided, well, you know what? Ethiopia's a bigger population, a stronger military. Their access to the waters was more important than Somali. So they threw all their support behind Ethiopia. So the United States kind of came into the picture and said, you know what, Somalia, we're going to be your friend. We're going to give you weapons. We're going to be the countermeasure to the Soviet Union and the communists. Not that Somalia was any democracy, but it's geopolitics. The United States saw an opportunity to support an enemy of the Soviet Union. You know, the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That was that kind of situation.
Yeah. Wait, who was the enemy of the Soviet Union? Somalia?
Both Ethiopia and Somalia were Soviet friends, but Somalia and Ethiopia got into a land dispute war, and the Soviets chose Ethiopia.
Okay.
As their
So then
out of the two, they chose Ethiopia.
So then we wanted to get into it and
Yes,
just
kind of
give
like
our
that.
big middle finger to the Soviet Union. Yeah.
So we chose Somalia.
Okay.
Okay, but it didn't matter. Ethiopia is a much bigger country. They destroyed Somalia in that war in about 89 or 90. Okay. At that point, Somalia began to deteriorate quickly. We weren't going to send troops in to stop any internal fighting there. We were just like, okay, hey, we tried to be friends, but no more. And the thing about Somalia, they were an old British colony. The northern part of Somalia was the British colony. The southern part of Somalia was an Italian colony. After the war, they turned over independence to the entire nation. The problem is two different governing structures from two different colonial powers. And on top of that, throw in the fact that Somalia is very clan-based society. They very much, there's different clans that originated hundreds of years ago from families. And these clans were basically under control of a strong man in the 80s and 90s throughout the war. When they lost the war to Ethiopia, the government faltered, the president fled the country, and so now there was no governing structure. The entire country was being governed by clans, regional clans, who became at war with each other. And since we stepped into the mess with trying to be antagonistic towards the Soviet Union, it was a little bit of our problem because we said they were our friends. So what happened about 90 or 91, we started taking Somalis to our country as refugees
Okay, but why did they need to get out of their country?
because it was collapsing. The government had failed. It was a failed state. There was no central government. These clans were fighting with each other, starving each
Oh.
other. Different clans were starving some clans. Executions were happening. The country
But
was,
Ethiopia is out of the picture at
they're out
this
of the
point.
picture at this point. Yes.
So they're just fighting each other? Why were
In
they
Somalia, they're fighting each
so
other
why did the thing with Ethiopia lead to them just fighting each other in their country?
because when they lost the war to Ethiopia, I mean, they were slaughtered. The government had no money. They had spent all their resources on this war. When they lost the war, the certain clans ran the president out of the country for leading them into a disastrous war.
Okay.
So now these clans are fighting. And since we stepped into it to be the antagonist of the Soviet Union, we were kind of stuck with this problem. We weren't going to send soldiers there. Although there's that famous movie, Black Hawk Down. You ever hear about that? Mogadishu.
No.
There was a lot of killing going on. We sent some troops in. It turned out to be a disaster under Clinton. Bottom line, that's a whole different story. But anyways, since we got ourselves involved in Somalia, we felt a humanitarian duty to bring some of these refugees into our country. So
Yeah.
that's how it all began. In about 91 or 92, they started. I mean, there was only probably a few hundred Somalis in this country up to that point. At that point, though,
Which was not that long ago.
no, 30 years ago, 30 plus
Yeah.
years ago. But at that point, we were going to bring the Somalis here and begin to resettle them. And not unfortunately, depends on your perspective. Minneapolis was the perfect spot to settle them
Why?
because in the 70s, after the Vietnam War and the Cambodia situation in Laos, Lutheran services and Catholic services, for whatever reason, set up an infrastructure in Minneapolis. Maybe it was cheap to get in, it was cheap to set the infrastructure up there. So they were bringing a lot of the Vietnamese and Laotians and Cambodians to Minneapolis. So the infrastructure to bring refugees was already in place, mostly in Minnesota. So it was a natural fit. We had these massive amounts of refugees coming in, Lutheran services and Catholic social services. Not proud of that one, but anyways, they had the infrastructure to get these people settled in, housing, job opportunities, kind of coaching them into
Mhm.
assimilating into society. But they never really assimilated. And that's also part of the downfall.
Mhm.
And why didn't they assimilate? Because they came from a nation that was clan-based. And even though they might have said, I'm a Somali at the time, 40 years ago, that wasn't really identifying yourself in Somalia. You identified which clan you came from. So they're very much of a clannish people. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's just the reality of their history. So now they come to Minnesota, and after all these years, they're still pretty much a clannish people.
So did the United States pick which Somali clan to take into
No,
the
just,
US? So then how are they not fighting each other here? Or how did they not?
well, you're right. They came from, I think, mostly the southern Somali, not northern.
Okay.
I think because this northern had a little bit more infrastructure at the time. But
Okay.
I have to double check that, so I don't want to say that with certainty. But
Okay.
yes, you are correct. They mostly did come from I believe, the certain groups of clans.
Okay. Interesting.
And today, a lot of them still won't speak English. They haven't assimilated. I think there was a hearing in Congress recently where the congressman pointed out the fact that after 10 years of being in the country, the average Somali, statistically, over like 70 or 80% still are on public assistance. After 10 years, over half still don't speak English.
Yeah, so can you touch that real quick? And I know they don't speak English. We'll get into that,
Well,
but
no, a
like
lot of them do, but a lot of them still don't.
no, a lot of them don't though.
Right,
Like
no.
I've seen videos of Nick Shirley where he's tried to interview Somalis as well.
Right.
A lot of them don't speak English. They
No.
say they don't speak English to him.
Yeah.
Um,
Good. Don't fall into the liberal trap because the exception doesn't prove the rule. A lot of them do. Because then you start sounding like, oh, none of them speak English. They hate their, you know what I mean?
Oh,
You
okay.
can't go that far. I know what you're saying, but
But a lot of them don't, though.
many of them don't, but that's
Yeah.
not the rule.
Okay. Anyways, what I was gonna say is when we decided to take them in, obviously this is brand new. They're coming with nothing, right? Did we set them up?
Yeah,
Well, did we paid them?
absolutely. We still do today.
So it wasn't, back in the day when people immigrated to America and they
No,
came to start their lives
right.
here and they started with nothing.
Nope.
So we helped them.
You get refugee cash. If you're listed as a refugee, there's temporary protective services. It gives you cash, it gives you money for housing, it gives you medical because you're not an illegal alien. You are granted asylum. You have certain benefits that you are entitled to with the expectation that you will soon get off those benefits.
So how much money do they get though? Like, is it a monthly stipend or
It's short for the refugee status. It's like $900 a month. But once you're
it's still a
here,
lot of
though,
money?
but once you're here, though, you have that status. You're not an illegal, so you qualify for Medicaid,
Hmm.
qualify for SNAP, you qualify for welfare. The
Hmm.
temporary status gives you money from one bucket of money. That's very short
But
term.
then you qualify
Then you
for
start
the
to
other stuff.
qualify. So these people setting them up, the Lutherans and the Catholic Social Services, were they training them to be productive in society or were they training them to work the system? I don't know. I can't make one claim either way. I can
Hmm.
only say with certainty, many of them, the majority are still on public assistance. It's a generational. It's not a bridge. It was supposed to be a bridge from one point from A to B. It's turned into the road that
Yeah,
they
why isn't our policy written so that
time limits.
after time limits. Yeah, why would we
Votes. I mean, in a way, the Somalis are a victim of the Democrat Communist Party. Forget
yeah.
Democrats anymore. They're communists. They're the victims of a communist party that wants votes. And the only way they get their votes, they don't have it on policy that sells to anybody. They have it by buying their voting base, cheating, stealing, and buying votes. That's what
Yeah.
they do. And you know what? And Republicans, all mealy mouth, no spine Republicans, are always scared to call it out. But the Democrats steal and they buy votes
Yeah.
because the only thing they care about is power, not policy.
Wait, back to the language thing though. I know what you said. However, a lot of the Democrats, so I've seen Jacob Fry, I've seen Ilhan Omar, and I've seen, um, like, it was a Minneapolis police chief or something. It was either an officer or a police chief, but I've seen all separate conferences. Like, they talk in Somali to these people. They don't
Right.
talk in English. So, whether or not they speak English every day or not, they're catering to their origin language. So, why would they do that if they're in America? That's what I don't really understand. That's not assimilation. That's,
No, well, if you think about it, if the Democrats really promoted assimilation, those people might realize this might be a good country with better policies. But if you keep them as a diaspora of their own kind, where they have to rely on the Democrats and they don't have to learn the language, they can just stay just as they are, from Mogadishu to Minneapolis, basically M&M. Nothing changes but the weather, and the government takes care of them here, where the government killed them in Mogadishu.
mhm.
So it serves the Democrats well to keep them as a diaspora amongst themselves. So I blame part of this on the Somali population. But when you think about it, you really got to blame the communists and even the fraud. All these daycare centers. I can't say this. I can only say it with anecdotal evidence. I give that Somali daycare center as a communist Democrat $2 million. I bet a dozen donuts to a dollar. That daycare center, before they ship that money back to Mogadishu, is probably shipping me a campaign contribution somehow of some money too.
Yeah.
I think the Somali people are being used as a money laundering operation for the Communist Democrat Party. I mean, a great power
Time will
structure.
tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell with those investigations. I know that there's like a special prosecutor or whatever for it. But has there ever been any type of policy that's supposed to drive assimilation for these refugees or
Yeah.
immigrants?
Once you become citizenship, you take a little test. You're supposed to learn the language. There's no law, but the U.S. Department of Immigration used to promote the part of learning our history, going to our schools. That's when the public school system wasn't an indoctrination center also. So
Yeah.
things have changed over the last 30, 40 years. It's not the same. It's not that, Chevrolet apple pie America that I grew up in and that you might have caught the tail end of. This is a totally different country. It's a totally different education system that is not promoting that America values. I mean, think about it. What is their claim? Diversity is our strength. No, it isn't. Look at our money. It says e pluribus unum, from many one. Okay.
What does that mean?
From all these different people, we become one. That
Mhm.
used to be our motto. Now it still is, officially. But what's the real motto you hear out there from the communists? Diversity is our strength. Think about that. If you lived in a neighborhood where one person spoke Polish, the next person spoke German, the next person spoke Somali, you spoke English, the next person spoke Russian, and there was a power outage in your neighborhood, how would that diversity help all those neighbors get together and figure things out?
Probably.
Diversity our strength is bullshit. And I'll tell you what, you can take that statement, diversity is our strength. If you say it in the abstract, it can be true if you apply it to our neighborhoods, right? But
Yeah.
why don't they take that diversity is our strength and apply it to the sexes? Why is it that diversity should disappear in the locker room? Men and women should be in the same locker room or the same sports. So they take up, they
Well, they are saying that men and women
no, but if you truly believe diversity is our strength across the spectrum, then the diversity would be women's locker room, men's locker room. That diversity is our strength. Now that actually works in
No,
that
but they're
situation,
saying they like the diversity of men and women's locker rooms, though.
but that's calling it sameness then. That's not calling it diverse. But anyways, the only policy the Communist Democrat Party has is power. Power is their policy and policy is their power. Simple as that. They don't
Okay.
go beyond that.
Okay. Anything else on the Somalis?
Yeah, one more thing, Ilhan Omar.
Okay.
I find it kind of odd that, in the last 4 years that she's been in Congress, she was worth nothing as from being a refugee to now worth over what, $30 million, they're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess marrying your sibling pays off somehow.
Yeah.
Didn't she marry her brother to get in the country? I know on paper.
Yes. I
It's
heard
paid
that's a
off
thing
handsome.
though in Somalia. I heard that's a very common thing. Incest. That's also something that
Maybe that's another reason. Well, they kept each clan together, so who knows?
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go there, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I read, but yeah. Ilhan Omar, she needs to I don't know how she hasn't been kicked out yet. Like who could how could they kick her out? Who could kick her out?
well,
Cuz
she can't because she's a citizen. I mean, she can't be
no,
kicked
she
out.
needs to be kicked out of Congress
Oh,
though.
right. What they got to do to investigate? The Republicans, when they get their spine, which I'm sure will be sometime in the next 200 years, they'll probably do something about that.
Yeah.
Until then, don't hold your breath.
One last thing on the Somalis. So obviously this fraud that was identified by Nick Shirley was all Somali owned
Right.
businesses. Why their community? Why not the Chinese? Why not the Indians? What is it about the Somali community that is tied to all this fraud, do you think?
The very fact that I said historically they're very clannish. They stay together. It's that call to kin. We stay with ourselves. It doesn't go out. So it's almost like if anyone, if you want a group to keep a secret, that's the
Mhm.
group. They're dependent on you. They don't go outside their community, and you can flush cash right through that community, and it's not going to be spilled out. They're not going to go outside of their little circle to bring other
Mhm.
people into that fraud. So they are the perfect useful idiot group. And
Mhm.
I think mostly their IQs are, well, I won't go there. But, anyways, they are the useful idiots once again for the communists. Do you really think Governor Walz and Mayor Fry, do you think they really care about the Somalis? They're being used as like they do with all their followers.
Mhm.
So they are the perfect group, though, too. A lot of them don't speak English. They stick together. They don't assimilate. So it's the ideal group to flush money to and launder it.
Yeah.
My thoughts, anyways.
It's crazy that it took a kid my age to just find all this out.
Yeah, I had 20 a 22-year-old, 22, way younger than
Yeah,
me, isn't he?
way
So
younger than me, yeah.
yeah, so and the real reporters on, the networks all sit there and, trash him and
Yeah.
say what a horrible thing he did. He did his job. He did journalism, something they used to do.
Yeah, it's
Or
too
maybe
bad
they
they
maybe
don't.
they never did it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's too bad they don't. Well, since Nick Shirley's fraud went viral, ICE has gone to Minnesota. I don't know if that was intentional, if they sent ICE there right after that happened,
I
or
thought ICE got there just before, didn't they? Or I don't know. I don't know.
maybe they did, but all of a sudden it was a big deal that ICE
Right.
was there. Anyways, so I don't know if that was intentional or what. Now we have ICE there, and there's all these protesters that are interfering with their deportation operations. We covered the previous shooting on one of our episodes, Renee Good, but there's been another one since by Border Patrol, which is Alex Pretti. Pretty, I'm not sure how to say it,
Right.
unfortunately. God rest his soul. But I don't know what to think about this one. So, what I'll say is, I've seen the videos of him being a radical leftist, of him kicking the police cars and all that stuff. Wrong, right? Not a smart move. Not a smart move to go to a protest with a gun and
Right.
Y- y-
No, I know. I get it.
Yeah. However, if you watch the video, I don't like watching it to be quite honest, but if you watch the video, it's clear that there was a lot of chaos and maybe that shooting shouldn't have happened the way it did. Yes, the guy should have been arrested and slammed to the ground and whatever else you want to say, but like, should he have lost his life? I don't know. That's where I kind of get. But of course, when you put yourself in that type of situation, you're opening yourself up to that.
Yeah, so a couple of comments on that. Number one, anyone who can sit there and say for sure today, I know exactly what happened. The ICE agent was wrong or the ICE agent was
It
justified,
was Border Patrol.
or both. Border Patrol, the officer. Anyone can say with certainty that they know for sure was wrong or right. They don't know. It's just an investigation right now. Now we can talk about it just as citizens. Yes.
Yes.
Should a person interject themselves? If I see an officer roughing somebody up on the side of the road, I'm not going to stop my car, get out and jump at the officer and go attack him. Chances are I got a good feeling I'm going to get hurt or
Yeah,
killed.
for sure.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that.
For
That's
sure.
number one. Number two, did he deserve to die? No, no one deserves to die. You know, ask me if I'm losing any sleep. I'm only very cold and callous about this. Any useful idiot that is willing to be used by the elites, you're playing with fire. I don't know what to say. Why didn't he have ID on him? Why did he have his gun? Why did he have his...
Yeah.
Anyone's entitled to carry a gun. I mean, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But why would you carrying a gun get yourself into a scrap with the officer of the law?
So, yes, agreed. So talk about that though real quick because a lot of the left is saying now, "Oh, you guys are all of a sudden against the Second Amendment now
No, we're
that."
not.
So they're saying that though because he was one carrying a gun in.
Of course.
But talk about the CPL laws
Okay,
and like
well,
how
that,
he
that's
wasn't
what I was
following
going to
that.
say.
Yeah.
So those stupid liberal communists have no clue what they are talking about. A law-abiding gun owner has to take a class from a licensed gun expert. A lot of them happen to be ex-officers, and they teach you exactly how to act. And not once in my classes have I ever heard him say, oh, if you see something you don't like, that an officer is roughing up a person, make sure you stop and get out and go get involved. No, you can carry a gun responsibly. This man carried a gun irresponsibly.
Mm-hmm.
And do I support the Second Amendment still? Even more so. Even more so, because what I see with the federal troops today, they might be leftist one day. I want to make sure I have my gun, but not that I'd win in a shootout. But I'm just saying, for them to make the comments like somehow the conservatives are being hypocritical on the Second Amendment, they have no clue what they're talking about. Chances are because they're scared to even look at a gun and they don't know what you have to go through in order to carry a gun. So that criticism, that must be a talking point put out by some stupid liberal.
It's all over right now. That's
Of
what they're
course.
saying. And then another thing that they're saying, so remember the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and I kind of have to remind myself on what happened, but I think when there was riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin a few years ago, I think it was George Floyd that it was about.
Of course.
Yeah. And the streets were crazy. This guy, Kyle Rittenhouse, went there with his gun. I'm not sure why. Like,
Right.
probably not I don't know.
Once again, not a smart thing.
Not a smart thing, but like, however, they're saying, well, why didn't the officer shoot him? It's because he
wasn't fighting with an officer.
Well, he also let them know that he had a gun because when you're near an officer and you're carrying a gun, correct me if I'm wrong, you're supposed to disclose that you have a firearm on you.
Near an officer?
Or no, if you're in encounter with an officer.
Encounter, yes.
Yes.
I've been pulled over for
Yes.
speeding. First thing I
Got it.
was walking, both my hands are on the wheel, and I'll tell them, officer, I have a permit to carry, and
Yes.
the gun's on my person.
Okay. Yeah. So Kyle Rittenhouse did something similar. He was like, firearm on me, like
Totally
arms up.
responsible.
Yes. So this guy, he didn't do that. Like they had to find the gun on him.
Right.
So yeah.
So once again, the liberal argument about gun owners, it comes from a place of ignorance because they don't know what they're talking about. Any law-abiding CPL person, well, the first thing you do if you stop by an officer is tell them you have a weapon. Absolutely the first thing. And Kyle Rittenhouse did it. Do I think Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent of that shooting? Yes, I think he was innocent. Do I think he was smart to go to a riot with a...
No.
No, he was not the brightest to me. But everyone's different. Okay.
But it wasn't illegal.
It was not illegal, and he did not murder somebody. He was self-defense. Now, did he put himself in that situation? That's debatable, but that's not something that's objective. Objective is he was innocent of the shooting. Objective is he was allowed to carry the gun. Subjective is, should he really go to that situation with a gun? That's an argument you can have every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts on this Alex Pretti situation?
Besides being unfortunate, unfortunately, all the experts who say, these are murders, even Renee Good. Number one, I'm not an officer. I've never been in that situation, and neither have all these people doing the criticism. I wonder, though, if we were in that job and people are blowing whistles at you and they they got their cameras and they're taping you.
And they have guns on them.
And if you don't know that, but no, I'm just saying they're throwing snowballs at you. They're throwing frozen water bottles at you. There's the strategy there. The strategy is to confuse and create anxiety amongst law enforcement officials, hoping a mistake gets made.
Yeah.
Willing to sacrifice one of their own. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're under that constant whistleblowing, cars honking, cars tailing you, people screaming, I don't care if you're the award-winning police officer of the year or ace agent of the year, you're under extreme duress, extreme stress, and you're going to make mistakes. We're human. So even if this was not a legal kill, the situation is a chaotic situation, and to expect perfection is really wrong on the part of the American people.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts. It's not a legal opinion. It's just a moral opinion.
Okay, agree. So let's talk a little bit about ICE since we're on this subject. So, just hearing in my generation, hearing some chitter chatter among colleagues, friends, whatever, a lot of people, when you bring up the argument against people who hate ICE and deportations, I'm like, oh, well, did you know Obama had the most deportations out of any president in history or whatever?
Right.
And there's a graph that shows it too.
Right.
And they'll say, yeah, that might be true, but it's not about how many are happening, or it's not about it happening. It's about how he's marketing it and he's making it well known.
Does that change the fact of the numbers, though?
No, but they think that the way that he's marketing it is evil and he's trying to.
Emotional retards.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I use the words.
And they
can't use them anymore, but
also say because when Obama was doing it, they had decisive operations, but Trump's ICE is going around and just raiding homes and trying to find people, and they don't know. They're causing chaos is what they're saying. And Obama did it, and it was very undercover.
First of all, the chaos results from sanctuary cities not having local law enforcement hand these people over to them if they're coming out of the jail or the courtroom. You would only need one ICE agent to get in the car or a squad car or a van, go to the court with the illegal criminal, if it was a rapist or murder, or to the jail when they're being released, hand it over to him, put in the van, and you know what? Nobody would see it. Nobody would know it. But these sanctuary cities are not going to do that for Trump. They're just not going to do it. So instead of sending one, you got to send 12. You got to have 3 people to go to the door, 2 behind the house, 2 on the side, 4 to fight the crowd off.
But they would do it for Obama, though. So that's why it was.
They didn't have to because the Democrats cooperated with Obama.
Yeah.
Another thing, I don't even want to give Obama credit for deporting that many people. I'll tell you why. It's all how you count the numbers. A lot of people that came to the border and crossed over and were immediately turned around by him got counted as a deportation.
Oh.
He used that to sound tough. I'm not saying all of them, but a number of them. So yes, Trump has to go into the interior of the country to get these people out, to get that tick mark for a deportation. Obama Border Patrol had to have them cross the Rio Grande and send them back.
Oh, really?
Not all of them. I'm just saying some of them count towards that 3 million. So they call him the deporter in chief. So it depends if you want to.
And there wasn't a wall up yet.
Correct. So
yeah.
I mean, once again, the old saying, numbers lie. It's how you interpret the numbers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter. The bottom line is
he still liked deportations.
Right. The bottom line is Bozo Biden let in probably 12 to 15 million people, and we got to get them out.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. So another thing people bring up, again, my age group, they say that, well, did you know that Ronald Reagan, who was a Republican president, let the most immigrants in out of all the presidents? Why is Trump not as welcoming to immigrants as Ronald Reagan?
Well, we also had massive immigration in the early 1900s, and reached a point we said enough was enough. Even they say we're racist. Even the white Europeans, we said enough.
Yeah.
We can't take anymore.
Okay.
Reagan was in a situation where the economy was starting to boom, and when he took office, they were already in the country.
So he just said, you guys can stay.
Gave them amnesty and let them in. Doesn't mean just because Ronald Reagan did something doesn't mean we have to keep doing it. Just because George Washington did something doesn't mean we have to keep doing it. A policy that works at a certain period in time doesn't mean it applies something 45 years later. So those are false equivalencies. Those are false analogies. And people need to do their homework to realize, what was the population base back in the 80s? What were the job demands back in the 80s? What are they now? What was the economy like in the 80s? What is it now?
Yeah.
Did they assimilate in the 80s? Will they assimilate now? All those arguments are just propaganda. They feed to their useful idiots who lap it up like dogs because they're too lazy to look at stats and to read a book.
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm not
Period.
very kind to these people anymore. I'm tired of it.
That's okay. So The other hot topic among my generation right now, and we haven't brought this up in previous episodes, is ICE wearing masks. So people don't like that. I don't know why. I get why they wear masks. It's because obviously they're being attacked in every single way possible right now. They need to for the safety of themselves personally outside of their job and for their families. Is this a new thing that Trump ordered, or is this what do you think about it?
For my first point to those people who are complaining, I bet you they were the first people to put a mask on during COVID and
Yeah.
hated to take it off. I guarantee you, they
Yeah.
couldn't wait to put a mask on and yell at somebody in the grocery store for not having a mask on.
Yeah.
Okay, they liberal pukes that they are.
Yeah.
As far as ICE wearing a mask, well, let's see. Border Patrol and ICE officers do a lot. Besides these deportations, they do a lot of work with the DEA in stopping smuggling from the cartels. You do not want to be identified by a cartel member.
Oh, yeah.
Also, they get doxxed. These little liberal protesters out there is not organic. This is Antifa and BLM groups. And they have their signal chats and they have access to records and files. Without these masks, they would absolutely identify these officers, go to their homes, and put their families in danger. So all these people criticizing about the ICE officers wearing masks and they can't tell who they are. A couple things. Number one, those are what you call cowards. You know, they have courage when they're sitting on their couch. If they were out in the streets doing ICE's job, I bet you they'd want a mask on. Okay.
They would never do ICE's
They
job.
would never do ICE's job.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't identify them as an officer when it says police right across their vests
Yeah.
and they all come together in neighborhoods where there's a lot of illegals, I'm going to go out on a limb and say those are probably federal officers. I don't know about those people, but I'm going to maybe take my chance. Now, if somebody knocks at my door at 3 in the morning with a mask and says police across their vest, I might not open the door and I might call 911 and say, is there an officer being sent to my house? Because he has a mask. They take a concept and they apply it to situations where it doesn't make sense. But you say masks are bad. Okay, are they bad in the situation for an ICE officer? No, they're not bad. Are they bad when you walk into a party store? Yeah, because he might shoot you thinking you're going to rob him. You can't just make a statement say masks are bad. You got to put context to it. And if you don't put context to it, it becomes just a cheap meme or a cheap slogan. And they can go stick their slogan right, wherever.
Okay. Thanks. So, since the shooting of Alex Pretti, so I'm talking high level, I don't know the details and like why things have happened, but we've seen Trump remove the border patrol and kick Gregory Bovino out of Minnesota, from my understanding. And now Tom Homan was there and he was there the other day and he did a press conference. I did watch that press conference and Tom Homan handled it really well. I feel like Tom Homan is one of those guys, even the liberals can't dislike him because he's a pretty reasonable guy. I mean, they do dislike him, but like he was talking to, Waltz and Jacob Fry and all that, and somehow he got them to agree they were going to give the criminals to ICE, which is kind of ironic considering they've been calling ICE the Gestapo and all this stuff, and now all of a
Yeah, they're
sudden,
handing them over to the Gestapo.
yeah,
Very principled people.
yeah. And a lot of their base is now mad at them. However, what do you think of all this? Some people are now saying that we're not going after all the illegals and we need to get all the illegals out. And some people are saying, no, we are. This is just to shut down the chaos and shut people up. What's actually going on, and what do you think about all of it?
Well, my thoughts, opinion only. I think Trump capitulated. I would have left Bovino there and I would have sent 2,000 more ICE troops there because now the next sanctuary city that has a situation knows that they can protest, knows that they can cause problems, and know that, well, pull ICE out. And then that also takes away the fact of what some people do want, like me. I want all the illegal aliens out of the country. I want the violent ones first, but I don't want it to stop. That's kind of signaling, well, we're just going to get the violent ones out.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Do that in Minneapolis and pull out. That's fine. But ultimately, we need to go back into those cities, and everyone who's here needs to leave and go home now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I think is, I think Trump's wrong on that. I think he made a mistake. But the one policy that's
He should
really,
have done the Insurrection Act.
yes, I agree. The one policy that is working, how to get regular illegals out,
Self-deportation.
self-deportation. I think they should up the money because it takes 12 people to get one person out in these cities. Up the money. It's so much cheaper than putting all these resources. I mean, they're giving them 1,000 or they're up to 3,000 now. Give them
Mhm.
5,000.
Yeah.
And then that's 6 months of Medicaid and SNAP benefits. Get them out.
Yeah.
And, ones that self-deport, they have that great option to reapply.
Mm-hmm.
And that's humane. We're going to pay you money. We're going to transport you humanely out of the nation. But probably as soon as you land, here's an application, fill it out. We will consider it.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't rebuild financially in this nation until we know who are our citizens, who's here. And,
Yeah.
so I think Trump made a mistake in Minneapolis on that. As much as I like Tom Homan, I think he made a big mistake by pulling Bovino out of there.
But
That's just my
now,
opinion.
all the chaos has calmed down, I think, at least, right?
So the agents of chaos will stop creating chaos when you give in. Well, that's always the case.
Yeah.
I mean, is that really the best lesson that we should get out of this? That, okay, if we back down, you'll stop the chaos. Well, in other words, we're going to do what you want.
Yeah.
And you're not going to stop chaos until you get what you want. It's like giving the spoiled child what they want. And that's what he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I feel yet about that, but not good. Well, what about the immigrants who have been, I guess, is it so bad that we let some of them stay? Like the ones who have been here for like 20 or 30 years who are paying taxes, and can we just give them amnesty? Like what?
I don't know if we could give them amnesty, but I would say this because there's more than 25 or 30 million. I would say this, even the peaceful ones,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that came in the past 6 to 8 years need to go.
Yeah.
Criminals or not. The ones that have been here 20 years that are criminals need to go. But if
Mm-hmm.
you've been here 15, 20 years, you're paying taxes. I guess, something could be worked out for them if they're truly honest and they've assimilated.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that came through under Biden, they all need to go. I'm sorry. He opened the floodgates. They all need to go.
Yeah.
Even if it's Abuela or Tia or, they're working hard and you got to go.
Yeah.
It's resources from American citizens. All I got.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. Email us. Let us know what you think. If you have any other questions on immigration or any comments you'd like to hear more about, or if you have any other questions about the Somalis and their history, can't wait to see what happens with that. We'll continue to follow that. Hopefully, we see someone go to jail soon. I want to see Tim Walz go to jail. Maybe not go to jail, but I want to see someone high up be held accountable because someone knew about that. They didn't just not know about it. So that's my thought. But thank you guys. We'll talk to you next week. Stay tuned. We'll have another great episode for you then.
Over and out.